Okay, let's work on the glutes area now. As you can see, it's really clipping into the leg. In reality, the volume of the glutes would be preserved, so we would get a shape like that.
You can support CGDive by purchasing this course or some of the exclusive courses on academy.cgdive.com. Subscription is also available.
So let's try to do that. I'll go to the metarig, edit mode, select one of the thigh bones, Shift D, duplicate it, rotate it a bit, scale it down a bit, and place it in the butt area. Something like this. I'm going to press F2 and name it butt.l, or you can say glutes.l if you prefer. In pose mode, change the rig type to something like super copy. And from the back view, I want to move it more in the center of one of the butt cheeks. And then symmetrize it. This bone is parented to the spine, which is exactly what I want. I don't want it to move with the leg. So I made this bone a simple super copy. What I'm trying to do now is figure out how this bone should move, because I'm not quite sure yet. And then once I figure out how to do it manually, then I just have to figure out what automation I should use. I'm ready to generate my rig. Just press generate. We did introduce new deformation bones. So I need to parent again with empty groups. Then I'm going to click on layer 29 for the deformation bones and then shift click layer 13 where these new glutes controls are. But anyway, let's select the generated rig, apply the legs action. And the pose that I'm very interested in is over here at frame 360. But before I work on it, I'm going to shift select the character, go to weight paint mode, control click one of these butt deformation bones, go to weight paint, choose a draw brush, and with settings similar to these ones, strength to 0.1 or so, I'm going to start painting in the butt area. Now I have the restrict option on, so I cannot paint yet. Disable it and then start clicking, and I'll start adding the butt cheeks area to this new bone. I'll turn on wireframe. That will make it easier for me to see what I'm painting. And to start off, I'm going to paint a lot of weights in this area so that the whole butt cheek is controlled by this new bone that I created. Especially the lower part of it, and even a little bit in this area below the butt cheek. And I think that's a good start. Because of Xmirror, I have the other side painted already, so that's great. Let's go to object mode, select the generated rig, go to pose mode. On frame 340, I want to select this new control bone for the butt and press I, location and rotation, and then go to frame 360, inside view. I'm going to bring it out like this. So I am moving and rotating this bone until it gets in this kind of position. And again, I'm going to insert a keyframe for location and rotation. And as you can see, the volume of the glutes is kind of starting to rotate and move up with the leg. I can also go to frame 380, select this frame on 340, Shift D and duplicate it over, and that way the glutes will move up and then down. And that will allow me to work on the weight painting. Okay, now I can only select a layer 29, shift select the character in object mode and go to weight paint. And I'm going to start clicking in the legs area below the glutes, and that will start to reveal the form and the volume of this area. I also paint some weights around the torso. And that did bring out more of the volume of the glutes, but we still have some weird clippings. So let's try to fix that. Usually blurring helps in these cases. So I have the butt bone selected and I'm clicking in this area between the butt and the leg. Maybe if I select the actual leg bone and blur, that will help also. Now select the spine and blur a little bit as well. That will help create a nicer transition between the different body parts. As always, I'm painting and then blurring. I often turn off overlays with my pie menu, and in those cases it may be a little bit hard to see what I'm doing, but it's always painting and then blurring. And I like to turn off the overlays so that I can see the actual deformation, the actual mesh, the way I'll see it when I try to animate it. I wish there was a way to easily switch the bones also without having the overlays on, but that's not possible at the moment. So something like this is actually quite good. I can try to select the rig, shift select layer 13 to visualize the controls again, and maybe I can try to reposition this bone a little bit differently to see if that helps. But I think this position is fairly good, so maybe I can rotate it a little bit further towards the torso, something like that, and then insert keyframes for rotation and location. Okay, back to weight painting. I can try to blur a little bit. And that looks quite good to me, actually. I would like it if this crease that I have here right now, this crease, was less pronounced, but that's okay. We could, of course, add more correction bones, but for the time being, that is good enough. So let's work on the automation now, which will not be too difficult. I think I'll use the action constraint yet again. I think it will work quite well for the glutes because the movement of the glutes is quite complicated, as you saw. I want them to both move and rotate in a way that is not very easy to automate with other constraints like the transformation constraint, for example. Before I go, actually, I also want this bone to move in the opposite direction as well. So let's go to the armature, activate layer 13. Go to pose mode, and here for frame 400, I want to rotate this bone and move it down a bit and record keyframes for location and rotation. And that way the bone will rotate in this direction as well. Okay, now I'll go to my metarig. For the generated rig, let's hide layer 13 and just leave layer 29, and we'll be able to use it as a reference. So for the metarig, go to edit mode. I'm going to Shift D and duplicate this bone and scale it down with individual origins. And in pose mode, I'm going to make this bone a raw copy. And basically, I'm going to set the automations on this bone, and then I'm simply going to parent this super copy that I already have to this raw copy bone. So the raw copy is going to be a mechanism bone, so I need to rename it. MCH butt.l will work in my opinion. Actually, when I think about it, the super copy may already create a MCH bone with the exact same name. So just to be safe, I'm going to change this name a little bit. Let's say MCH butt action.l. Okay, in edit mode, I want to parent the super copy to the row copy with keep offset. And then I want to start creating my action. Currently, I have applied the calf hamstring section. I'm going to click X to remove it, and then new to add a new action. I'm going to call it Ogre Action Glutes. Okay, on frame 1, I'm going to set a keyframe for location and rotation, and then on frame 10, I want to move it something like this, and then again set a frame for location and rotation. Select all these keyframes, press T and choose linear. Now I'm going to select this ogre body in object mode and H to hide it. Now I'm going to go to frame 360 where the raise of the leg occurs. And this is the position of the butt bone that I want. So I'm going to make an annotation by pressing D, or I don't even need that. I could select my metarig, go to pose mode, select this MCH bone, move it at the position of the bone in the generated rig, and press I, location and rotation, and then I'm going to grab this keyframe that I have and move it back to frame 10, and it will override the previous keyframe that I had set. Again, I'm going to select all bones and set interpolation to linear just in case. All right, then on frame 11, I'm going to press Alt R and Alt G to bring this bone to its original position. Set location and rotation keyframes, and then go to frame 20 and kind of rotate and move it down a bit and set keyframes again. Then I'm going to go to frame 400 and see the actual position of this butt bone that I set for the generated rig, and then go to the metarig, move the MCH bone into position, set location and rotation keyframes, move just this keyframe back to frame 20, select all, T linear. And now I have all of the actions that I need for this bone. I'll hide the generated rig for a second. And now I need a bone that will drive this animation that I just created with the action constraint. I could directly use the thigh bone, but as I explained earlier, for this elbow control, I don't like to do that. I prefer to have an intermediate MCH bone. So I'm going to go to edit mode, Shift D to duplicate this thigh bone, scale it down, F2 and name it MCH thigh copy.l. Go to pose mode, make sure I change the rig type to row copy, and then select the actual thigh bone, then the copy thigh bone, and press Ctrl Shift C and select copy transforms. Then select the thigh copy, shift select this MCH bone in the butt, Ctrl Shift C action. And now let's set up the action constraint. We want the X rotation to drive this behavior of the butt, and we want local space. The action is the glutes action. I'll try to rotate the thigh bone in X direction, and I'll pay attention to the value shown in the upper left corner. And I can see that rotating the leg backwards gives me positive values. So for the target range, I'm going to insert 0 to maybe 90, and for action range 1 to 10. When I set 1 to 10, my bone did move a little bit, and that is because I have set my initial keyframe at frame 0 rather than 1. So I'm going to select the keyframe and just move it slightly on frame 1. And now there will be no movement in this bone. Now I can try rotating this thigh bone, and the action seems to be working. Okay, now I want to set up the rotation in the opposite direction, so I'm just going to add another action constraint. I'm going to hover over the target area and press Ctrl C, and then for the new action, again, hover over target and press Ctrl V, bone, Ctrl C, bone, Ctrl V, then X rotation, local space, action glutes, range will be 1 to -90, and action range 11 to 20. Okay, let's try to rotate the leg in the opposite direction, and yeah, it seems that the setup is working. So now I want to symmetrize my bones. Select these two MCH bones and symmetrize. It seems to be working on the other side. The only thing that I need to do is parent this butt bone to the MCH bone in edit mode. Keep offset. And that should be it. Now I can unhide my generated rig and generate. In object mode, press Alt-H to unhide the ogre. We don't have any new deforming bones, so everything should be set up correctly. Just apply the legs action to the armature, and let's go to frame 360. Now the action looks weird, and I'm pretty sure the reason is let's select the armature and visualize layer 13. Go to pose mode and select the butt control, and it already has some keyframes. So I'm going to go to any frame before the first keyframe, select all keyframes, and delete them with the delete key. Okay, now if I go to frame 360, I have the same result as before, but now this result is automated. The cool thing about this setup that we just created is that the MCH bone that I created automates this action, but I still have this butt control that I can control manually whenever I want, if I wanted to. So I can even scale it up a little bit. We could have also automated this scaling by adding this scaling effect to the action. I'm not going to do that, but feel free to experiment with that as well. That concludes work on the butt. Now I see that I have really bad deformations in this area. I probably messed up the weight paint. So let's see if we can fix that.
That's it for this chapter. Please like, subscribe, and check out our other projects, academy.cgdive.com and addons.cgdive.com.